Motivated people fail just as often as lazy ones, because motivation was never the variable that mattered. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why success stays hard for most people, regardless of how badly they want it, and the three-part system that makes it stop being hard. Not easier in the temporary motivational video sense, structurally easier, permanently easier, because the system does the work your willpower was never built to do. Research from the Dominican University of California found that 92% of people who set goals fail to achieve them. 92%. That is not a motivation problem. The people in that study weren't lazy. They wanted their goals. They wrote them down. Some of them made detailed plans. They failed anyway because there is a gap between a goal and an outcome. And that gap is not filled by wanting. It is filled by something most people never build. Same hours, same days, same week. Two completely different outcomes. The difference is never the time. It's always the system. Here's the question nobody asks after a failed goal. Was this a motivation failure or a design failure? Because those two things have completely different solutions. And if you diagnose one when you have the other, you will spend years trying harder at something that needs to be built differently. James Clear, in his landmark book on habits and systems, borrowed a line from the ancient Greek poet Archilochus that I want to give you right now, because it is the single sentence this entire video is built on. You do not rise to goals, you fall to systems. Let that land. Your goals tell you where you want to go. Your systems determine whether you get there. A perfect goal with a broken system produces a motivated person who fails. An imperfect goal with a great system produces a person who builds something real. The 92% have goals. The 8% have systems. Everything we cover today is about building what the 8% built. I call it the S.E.T system. 3 letters, 3 moves. Each one solves a different layer of the failure problem. S, structure. Design the identity and the sequence your system runs on. Who you are building, in what order, with what default behaviors. E, environment. Redesign every physical and digital space around you so the right behavior becomes the easiest behavior. Remove the friction. Install the path. T, tracking. Build a feedback loop with a single metric that tells you whether your system is working before too much time passes to correct it. Most people attempt goals with none of these in place. Some attempt 1 or 2. The 8% build all 3 deliberately in sequence before they need willpower at all. Let's build it. Pillar 1, S, structure. Build the identity system. First, the first and most important structure decision you will ever make about any goal is not the goal itself. It's the identity the goal requires. This distinction sounds subtle. It changes everything. The cautionary mirror first. I want to tell you about someone I watched fail for 3 consecutive years at the same goal. Not a lazy person, not someone who didn't care. Someone with enormous energy, clear targets, and genuine commitment. Every January, same goal. Every April, same collapse, same self-blame, same resolution to try harder next year. What was missing was not effort. What was missing was an identity claim. This person was still approaching the goal from the outside. I want to lose weight. I want to write more. I want to build a business. All of those are outcomes. None of them are identities. The moment the framing shifted from I want to run to I am a runner, from I want to write to I am a writer, the behavior changed. Not overnight, not without difficulty, but the direction changed because the system now had an anchor. Psychologist Roy Baumeister at Florida State University spent 2 decades studying self-regulation and identity. His conclusion: behavior that is consistent with a person's self-concept requires far less willpower to sustain than behavior that contradicts it. In other words, a runner doesn't negotiate with themselves about whether to run, they simply run, because that's what runners do. The system starts with the identity claim, not after results, before them. In 1984, a then unknown cyclist named Bernard Hinault was asked in an interview what he did on rest days during the Tour de France. He said he rode his bike. The journalist laughed. Hinault didn't. He said, "I am a cyclist. Cyclists ride. There are no rest days from what you are." Hinault won the Tour de France 5 times. He wasn't more disciplined than his competitors. He had a cleaner identity, one that made the right behavior automatic and the wrong behavior almost unthinkable. The structure tools. Build these first. 1. Write the identity statement before you write the goal. Not, I want to get fit. I am a person who moves their body every day. Not, I want to save money. I am a person who builds wealth slowly and deliberately. The statement goes somewhere you see it daily, on your mirror, on your desktop, on the first page of your journal. You are not reminding yourself of what you want. You are rehearsing who you are. 2. Design the minimum viable version of the behavior. What is the smallest possible action that counts as the identity in practice? For a writer, 1 sentence. For a runner, 1 lap. For a builder, 1 decision. The minimum viable version is not the ceiling, it is the floor. Some days the floor is all you clear. That is enough. The system stays alive. The identity stays intact. 3. Sequence the system into a keystone habit. Researchers at MIT identified what they call keystone habits. Single behaviors that, when installed, naturally trigger a cascade of other positive behaviors. Exercise is the most studied. People who begin a regular exercise habit spontaneously improve their diet, sleep patterns, and productivity without specifically targeting those areas. Identify the keystone behavior for your goal. Build the system there. The cascade follows. 99% of people build goals. The 1% build identities that make the goal inevitable. The rule: you cannot sustain a behavior that contradicts who you believe yourself to be. Change the belief first. The behavior is easy after that. Pillar 2. E. Environment, design. Friction out of the right behaviors. Here is the most underestimated truth in all of behavioral science. You will almost always do the easiest available thing. Not because you're weak, not because you lack character, because you are human. And humans conserve cognitive energy by defaulting to whatever requires the least resistance. This is not a flaw. It is one of the most efficient features your brain has ever developed. The problem is that most people's environments are designed by accident. Their desk is cluttered because nobody arranged it deliberately. Their phone is within arm's reach because nobody decided where it should be. Their snacks are at eye level because nobody thought about where to put them. Every environmental accident is a system running against you that you didn't build. The solution is not stronger willpower. The solution is deliberate environmental architecture. In the 1960s, architect Richard Neutra ran a series of experiments on hospital design. He discovered that patients who recovered in rooms with windows overlooking natural scenery left the hospital on average a full day earlier than patients in identical rooms without windows. Same diagnosis, same treatment, same medical team. One design variable at the presence of a natural view measurably changed a biological outcome. Neutra called it biorealism, the idea that the designed environment does not merely contain human behavior, but actively shapes it at a level beneath conscious choice. Your home, your office, your phone's home screen, your car, your bedroom, all of them are shaping your behavior right now, beneath your conscious awareness. The question is not whether your environment influences you. It does. The question is whether you designed that influence or inherited it by accident. The environment tools. Redesign these this week. 1. The 2-minute rule for friction. For every behavior you want to do more of, make it takeable in 2 minutes or less. Gym clothes laid out the night before. Journal open on your desk. Guitar on a stand, not in a case. The case is friction. The stand removes it. 2 minutes of preparation eliminates an hour of resistance. For every behavior you want to do less of, add friction, not willpower. Friction. Put your phone in another room. Log out of every app that pulls you. Delete the shortcut. Make the path to distraction longer. Make the path to the right thing shorter. You are not building a better version of yourself. You are building a better environment that produces the version you want. 2. The visual cue system. Human behavior is extraordinarily responsive to visual triggers. A water bottle on your desk means you drink water. A book on your pillow means you read before sleep. A sticky note on your laptop that says one thing only means you start the day with depth instead of scatter. Design your visual field intentionally. What you see shapes what you do, whether you're aware of it or not. 3. The default decision audit. List the 5 most important behaviors in your current system. For each one, ask, is my default to do this or to not do it? If not doing it is the default, you are relying on active decision-making. And active decision-making is powered by willpower, which depletes. Redesign each default so the right behavior is what happens when you don't decide anything. Gym bag by the door means going to the gym is the default. Gym bag in the closet means staying home is the default. The bag is in the wrong place. Move the bag. You do not rise to goals, you fall to systems, and your environment is the most powerful system you have. 99% of people try to override their environment with discipline. The 1% redesign the environment, so discipline is rarely required. The rule: make the right behavior the path of least resistance. Make the wrong behavior the path that requires effort. Then let gravity do the rest. Pillar 3, a T. Tracking. Build the feedback loop that keeps the system alive. Every system without feedback is eventually a system that fails silently. This is the pillar most people skip. Not because they don't know tracking matters, because every system they've tried to track has eventually collapsed under its own complexity. They built a 12-metric dashboard. They tried to log every variable. They built a spreadsheet that required 20 minutes a day to maintain. And when life got busy, which it always does, the tracking broke. And when the tracking broke, the system became invisible. And when the system became invisible, it stopped existing. The answer is not to track more. The answer is to track one thing. I call it the minimum viable measurement. One metric, one number. The single data point that, if healthy, tells you the system is working. For a fitness system, workouts per week. Not calories, not macros, not heart rate zones. Did you train? How many times this week? That number tells you everything you need to know about whether the system is functioning. For a writing system, words per day. Not quality, not engagement, not topics covered. Words. Because a writer who writes bad words is a writer who gets better. A writer who stops writing is not a writer at all. For a financial system, savings rate. Not investment returns, not net worth fluctuations, not market performance. What percentage of income did you keep? That number is the only one you can control. In 2002, Billy Beane, general manager of the Oakland Athletics baseball team, refused to measure what everyone else measured. In a sport drowning in traditional statistics, he asked one question: what is the single metric that most predicts whether a batter will score a run? His analyst identified on-base percentage. Not batting average, not home runs, not any of the glamorous numbers scouts had used for a century. On-base percentage. How often does a player simply not make an out? Oakland built their entire team selection around that one metric. With the lowest payroll in the American League, they made the playoffs. 12 consecutive wins, a record that stood for over a decade. One metric. Chosen with precision, tracked relentlessly, it changed the sport. Your system works the same way. The value is not in tracking everything. The value is in identifying the one number whose health tells you the system is alive. The tracking tools, install these immediately. 1. Name your minimum viable measurement. For your most important current goal, write down the single metric that, if positive, tells you the system is working. One metric only. If you choose 2, you will eventually let one die. 1. 2. The daily tick. Every day, mark whether the metric was hit, not a score, not a grade, a tick or a cross. This is the Jerry Seinfeld system. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld told aspiring comedians to write one joke every day and mark it on a wall calendar. The goal was not to write a good joke. The goal was not to break the chain. The chain becomes the system. The visual streak becomes a source of identity momentum that makes stopping feel like a loss. 3. The weekly 5-minute review. Every Sunday, not a full debrief, not a long reflection, 5 minutes. One question: did my metric move in the right direction this week? If yes, what made it easy? Do more of that. If no, what made it hard? Remove one of those things before next week starts. That is the entire feedback loop. Name it, tick it, review it weekly. The system now has eyes. It can see itself. And what can be seen can be corrected before it collapses. 99% of people track until life gets busy. The 1% track one thing forever and never let the chain break. The rule: a system without a feedback loop is a wish. One metric tracked daily transforms a wish into a mechanism. Here's what I need to say honestly before we finish. You now have the S.E.T system: structure, environment, tracking. 3 pillars, every tool named, every principle explained, and there is a version of you that will watch this video, feel the clarity of it, and do absolutely nothing different tomorrow morning. Not because you're not smart, not because you didn't absorb it, but because the gap between understanding a system and building one is bridged by exactly one thing: the decision to start imperfectly, not when the timing is right, not when the motivation arrives, not when you've finished planning the system in your head. Today, with what you have, in the form available to you right now. Because the system doesn't need to be complete to start working. It needs to be started. Most people spend their whole life perfecting the destination and never designing the road. I'm going to be honest about something. I spent years believing I was a discipline problem, that the reason my goals kept slipping was a character flaw I needed to overcome. I read books about willpower. I tried every morning routine. I set harder goals, gave myself stricter deadlines, had internal conversations about mental toughness. None of it worked the way I wanted it to. Not because discipline doesn't matter, it does, but because I was applying it to a broken structure. I was pouring energy into a bucket with holes in the bottom, and blaming the energy instead of looking at the bucket. The moment I stopped trying to be more disciplined and started asking, what does the system need? Everything shifted. Not dramatically, not overnight, but in the quiet, compounding way that only systems produce. I don't tell you this to make the video feel personal. I tell you this because I know some of you have been having the same internal conversation I was having. I just need to try harder. I just need to want it more. Other people manage to do this. And what's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you. Your system has holes. Let's find them and fill them. That's all this is. This week, concrete. Start here. Tonight, write the identity statement. One sentence. Who are you becoming? Write it. Put it somewhere you see every morning. Tomorrow morning, before you open your phone or email, identify your minimum viable measurement for the most important thing you're building. Write it down. One metric. This week, run the environment audit. Pick the 3 most important behaviors in your current system. For each one, is the default to do it or not do it? Move one thing, physically today, that makes the right default easier. Install the daily tick, a wall calendar, a notes app, a physical notebook. Whatever takes the least friction to maintain, mark it every day. Do not break the chain. Sunday, 5 minutes. Did your metric move? What made it easy? What made it hard? Remove one obstacle before next week. That's the S.E.T system running. It doesn't require motivation. It requires 5 minutes of setup and 5 minutes of review. Everything else the system does for you. Results depend on consistent and honest implementation over time. There is a famous passage from the architect Christopher Alexander, who spent his life studying how built environments shape human experience. He wrote that a good structure is not one that constrains the person who lives inside it. It is one that makes the person who lives inside it more fully themselves. That is what a great personal system does. It doesn't restrict you. It removes the noise between who you are and what you do. It closes the gap between intention and action, between the person you want to become and the choices you make before your coffee gets cold. You do not rise to goals, you fall to systems. And the systems you build are not tools. They are decisions about who you are becoming. Every day you maintain a system, even imperfectly, you are casting a vote for a version of yourself that is more capable, more reliable, and more aligned with the life you actually want. You are right now building something. The only question worth asking is whether you're building it deliberately. Build deliberately. Build something real. Build something that runs without you needing to be at your best every single day. That is the only kind of success that lasts. Drop in the comments, which of the 3 pillars, either structure, environment, or tracking, is the one you've been skipping? No judgment. I genuinely want to know where people are actually getting stuck. I read every comment, and it shapes what I make next. If today moves something for you, subscribe.